and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We're in conversation with Manish Tiwari, Senior National Spokesperson of the Congress Party, but also very importantly for this conversation, he's an MP from Punjab, from Anandpur, and we're going to be talking to him about what is happening in the Punjab Congress, about what is happening in Parliament, because Parliament is going to reconvene soon, and also I'm going to draw on his experience in external affairs and ask him about the situation vis-a-vis Afghanistan. So Manish, packed conversation for sure. But the first question is, what is happening in Punjab? We've seen so much infighting. Are you going to get a new PCC chief?
Priya, thank you very much for inviting me to your show again. It's always a pleasure to come back and talk to you and talk to your audience. See, in Punjab, there is a very peculiar dynamic which is playing itself out. Unfortunately, political parties are not picking it up. So on one side, you have the cut and thrust of electoral politics playing itself out in the field, since we have elections coming up early next year in 2022. On the other hand, there is a parallel track where the people of Punjab are wanting justice from the central government. Each of the 12,000 odd villages of Punjab are absolutely and intrinsically networked into this mass movement on the ground, what you colloquially call the farmers' agitation. These people have been sitting on the borders of Delhi for 7 long months now. They've braved the chill of winter, they've braved the second wave of COVID, they are braving the heat and the humidity, men, women, and children, and they are not relenting. And the political parties in Punjab are not seeing that. There is a social unrest, there's a social upheaval on the ground. My fear is that we are perhaps heading back to 1989, the 1989 parliament elections, where an organized or a spontaneous revolt against the established political class actually threw everybody out. So therefore, if political parties in Punjab were actually to get their hand on the pulse, this is the time for all of them to come together. The Congress, the Akali Dal, whatever alliance it has or doesn't have with the BSP, the Aam Aadmi Party, and to speak in one voice for the interests of Punjab. Punjab is on a different track. And unfortunately, political parties in Punjab are on a completely different track.
Then I ask you the obvious counter question, Manish. You want everybody to speak in one voice, but is the Congress speaking in one voice? We are hearing criticism of the chief minister from members of his own party.
You see, the fact remains that at times people have views, aspirations, which they do not put in the correct perspective. And the correct perspective is that under Captain Amrinder Singh's stewardship, the Congress party has won each and every election which has taken place since 2017. 2017, as I once earlier explained to you, the Congress won the maximum seats that any political party did ever since 1966, when the current state of Punjab came to be constituted. So therefore, Captain Amrinder Singh is now in the same league as maybe Mr. Prakash Singh Badal, and he's getting on in years. God give him a long life. And so therefore, for anyone to really within the Congress think that they can compete with him, I think they are living in another world altogether. The fact is that he has given space to everybody to perform. He's been extremely magnanimous with everybody. And therefore, he is the person who has to lead the party into the next elections. Because on his performance or otherwise, the Congress party's fate and future is going to be tested in the January or February of 2022.
Which is why the question, as we speak, the name has not been announced, but we are told that the Punjab will get a new PCC chief anytime soon. and maybe even before the interviews aired. And it could be Navjot Singh Sidhu. Anyway, Sidhu has opened a camp against the captain. It's no secret. He gets on the headlines. He's been making public statements against the captain also. Again, he's an outsider. He doesn't have much support within the party also. So what kind of a message is being given to promote such a man, or even to give him time and listen to him? What is the importance of Sidhu?
Well, I would not put the cart before the horse, for the simple reason that, yes, you are correct that the General Secretary in charge of Punjab in the All India Congress Committee, Mr. Harish Rawat, has made certain public statements which seem to suggest that Punjab may have a new PCC president. There may be some reshuffle in the government. And so, therefore, we'll wait and see as to what really emerges from this process. But as I was earlier pointing out, that people seem to think that it is business as usual in Punjab. It is not business as usual. I have a constituency which it goes across 4 districts of Punjab. Possibly it's the largest in geographical spread. It is a rural constituency. We have 1,800 villages. And when I go to the villages, I see the frustration, I see the anger, I see the seething disappointment and their frustration that the political class has not been able to articulate their issues and their resentment properly. And so, therefore, Punjab is looking at a completely different dynamic. And I would not be surprised if this social unrest really paves the way for something more portentous. The central government has been playing with fire for the past 7 months. As we speak, Colonel Ajay Shukla wrote a very detailed piece in the Business Standard where he indicated that the Chinese are back in Eastern Ladakh. They seem to have even occupied the positions that we had vacated as a consequence of the disengagement agreement which was signed. You have Kashmir, which still continues to be disturbed. And if Punjab was to blow up, the entire northwestern and the northern border would be in difficulty. So I would once again like to tell the central government, tell the NDA BJP government that look at the history of Punjab. The history of Punjab is an education in itself. You are pushing the envelope too far. Don't stand on ego. Don't stand on the high pedestal of arrogance. See what is happening on the ground and roll back these 3 farm bills. You are saying that it is in the interest of the farmers. The farmers do not believe it is in their interest. So when the farming community does not believe that it is in their interest, you need to roll it back. And look at what is happening in Haryana, what is happening in Western UP. Even the chief minister of Haryana can't land his helicopter anywhere in the state. So therefore, recognize the sentiment on the ground. And therefore, I say that whatever happens inter se within the Congress party or within the Akali Dal BSP may be completely inconsequential to what Punjab wants at this point in time. And what Punjab wants is its political leadership, its members of parliament to come together, stand behind them, and unitedly articulate their concerns. I'll say it to you in Punjabi, when I go to the villages, what my constituents tell me is that, Wadi Sahab, ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਲੜੋ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਲੜ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ and Punjab has a long history of fighting against the Delhi Takht and they don't give up easily.
That is actually very true. But will you raise this in parliament again, or is there a way you can raise it because the bills have been passed?
Well, in the sense that we will raise it through an adjournment motion, we will raise it through other parliamentary mechanisms which are available to us. Let's not forget the fact that for 7 months, people have been sitting on the borders. Over 500 farmers have died in this unrest. There is an immense amount of sacrifice which is being made by the farmers of Punjab, Haryana, and Western Uttar Pradesh. And if the government thinks that this is only a localized phenomena and they want a full-fledged peasant revolt on their hands from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, then unfortunately they may just get it because the economic situation has become so distressing that not only the farmers, but even the poor and the marginalized. And if you go by certain estimates, the UPA government in 10 years had pulled 271 million people out of poverty between 2004 and 14. If estimates are to be believed, almost 231 million have gone back into poverty. So you are sitting on the top of a volcano, and it would be in the interest of the NDA BJP government to diffuse the farmers' agitation by just taking these farm bills back.
But they are saying we have increased the MSP price. We have, people who are agitating are not farmers, they are middlemen. You've heard their narrative. And they're very good at peddling narratives
So
vis-a-vis the opposition.
therefore, all one has to do is go to the borders. Why don't the NDA BJP ministers go to the borders of Delhi without security and go and see for themselves what the situation is? Has any one of them even dared to go and talk to those farmers on the ground? Is this the way a sensitive government needs to really react to the aspirations or even to the anger of their people? If in a democracy, when people articulate concerns, the attitude should not be that it's my way or the highway, we've passed the bills, you can do what you want. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like this. And mind you, if the farmers did not feel so passionately about it, they would have gone back, Priya. After all, the Supreme Court has stayed the implementation of these bills, but they see the manifest chicanery that they would be given this palliative of an MSP for a year or two, and then they would be thrown to the wolves of the free market. And the wolves of the free market do not work in the interests of the marginalized or the poor people of this country.
But you heard the other argument, Manish, that this is सिर्फ ये 2.5 states, ये 2.5 state का ही problem है, Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. So, and they never had Punjab. They, especially after breaking up with the Akali Dal, they're not confident of winning Punjab. So they are willing to sacrifice Punjab for other gains, appealing to a larger market or to the constituency
and
or whatever.
Therein lies the fatal mistake which they make. Punjab is not a state. This nation paid a very, very heavy price between 1980 and 1995 when Punjab was disturbed. You are heading back on the same trajectory. The Pakistani deep state has not stopped fishing in troubled waters. The ISI has not stopped their activity, notwithstanding whatever is the ceasefire on the border. The number of drones which carry weapons and come into Punjab every day, and the caliber of those weapons is increasing. I mean, earlier it was small arms, and if my information is correct, the caliber of those weapons is going up. So therefore, if you have a restive peasantry and you have a completely deviant and a completely malicious Pakistan wanting to take advantage of it, you've got trouble in your backyard. And therefore, I'm saying all those people who say कि ये 2.5 स्टेट की प्रॉब्लम है, ये 2.5 स्टेट की समस्या नहीं है, भारत की राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा से जुड़ी हुई समस्या है.
What you said is actually Punjab is not just a state; it is more. We've seen support from them from all over. But it is worrying also that the next national security problem is right there on our doorstep there in Punjab. We were talking about the problems in Punjab and how you're linking the farmers' problem to not just that, it could also have national security implications. Keeping that in mind, what is happening in Afghanistan? Where do you think, because that's also a situation that's going to blow up, how should India react?
Well, it has blown up. And so therefore, all those people who are now indulging in hand rigging should have only looked at the trajectory of the United States over the past 70 years. The United States, or any other nation for that matter, engages in situations on the basis of their enlightened national interest. The US, after the Second World War, went into Korea. That war ended in a stalemate in 1953. Vietnam, which was the US's longest war before Afghanistan, between 1961 and 1975 ended in a humiliating defeat for them. And after that, the Americans did not look for overt military involvement. Yes, 1990 was the high point of their military prowess in the first Gulf War, ironically, against Saddam Hussein, whom they had propped up between 1980 and 1989 against Iran. And then, of course, you had the disaster of the Second Gulf War between 2003 and 11. And therefore, the US had left Afghanistan in 1989 when their objective of humiliating the Soviet Union had been completed. You know, the collapse of the Soviet Union became a collateral. They had to come back again in, primarily because events in Afghanistan had impacted their national security, 9/11, etc. And now for 20 years, they've been there and they've felt that we've denuded the capacity of these semi-state and non-state actors to the extent necessary. Unfortunately, in these 20 years, a stable alternative has not emerged in Afghanistan. So they've done a deal with the Taliban, which is what you do in real politics, and they have decided to get out. So God forbid, if there is going to be a situation again which necessitates their intervention, they'll come back again. And Pakistan would be more than happy to play cat's paw, because these interventions bring a gravy train, which is very difficult for the Pakistani strategic elites to really dismiss, because there's just a lot of money going around. And thus the region is left holding a mess. So Afghanistan, the way it is spiraling out of control, means that there will be trouble for India and Jammu and Kashmir. The fact is that the ISI, the Pakistani deep state strategy of running with the hare and hunting with the hound has succeeded. For 2 decades, they kept nurturing the Taliban, and they knew that while the Americans had the clocks, the Afghans had the time. And so therefore, we, insofar as India is concerned, should be extremely, extremely pragmatic about our approach in Afghanistan. This is not the time that you get on the high horse of idealism, or you get on the high horse of any ideological position. We need to take a very, very pragmatic position. And I think the government is cognizant of it. They are, of course, denying that they have any contacts with the Taliban, but I'm sure they must have spoken to the Taliban leadership, even at the highest levels. And they obviously must be engaging with the other players. And this is the right thing to do. In fact, on India's Afghan policy, there has to be a national consensus, because this is going to be the most critical security challenge for India over the next 5 or 10 years.
So do you think the Prime Minister should reach out and have an all-party meeting on Afghanistan? Because, preempt as you said, it's already on our doors.
I don't think that an all-party meeting on something as sensitive as this is required. I think an unspoken understanding, an unspoken consensus between the leadership of the opposition and the government is good enough. If you were to rewind back to 1991, when the US had ratcheted tensions on Kashmir internationally, and Robin Raffel was like a loose cannon on the deck of the State Department of the US. India played it very well between P.V. Narasimha Rao and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. They handled the situation very deftly. The person who represented India at the United Nations Human Rights Commission was not Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. It was the leader of the opposition, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And so therefore, that's the kind of sagacity that India requires as it looks to handling the Afghan situation, which is going to get far, far more complicated and messy, because the US, and honestly, you can't even blame them. After all, they have their own national interest to take care of. They've made an assessment that our national interest has been served. Somewhere they may have done a deal with the Taliban that, look, please guarantee that you would not target US interests. And the Taliban also, after a 20-year beating and the manner in which their leadership was locked up in Guantanamo Bay, which was almost a de facto concentration camp, must have also learnt its own lesson that you do not cross a Rubicon. So therefore, the Taliban would then, play a regional game along with Pakistan, which has been their benefactor. It will, impact us adversely, definitely. But insofar as the US, etc., is concerned, they will leave them out of it. They'll not try the foolhardy stunts which they tried in the September of 2001 with the airliner attacks on the Twin Towers and at various other places.
And what about China? China has already invested in Afghanistan. They're looking to make inroads there.
Well, I think the Chinese are very wise. The Chinese, do not get into a bad situation. If you look at it, the Chinese have played it very, very carefully since 1979 when the Soviets went in. It's now been almost 40 long years. So therefore, the Afghan dynamic is really going to be an Afghan-Pakistan dynamic. And since the Chinese have a very cozy relationship with the Pakistanis, they would rarely outsource the problem to them. I do not see the Chinese getting involved in Afghanistan in some major way, primarily because their interests are very different. You see, China sees a once in a lifetime opportunity that it can actually catch up with the US over the next 2 decades and really become the preeminent power or the preeminent global power. That is their game. Their game is not Afghanistan. Afghanistan, etc., they will leave to Pakistan to take care of. And so therefore, I think there is a lesson for the Indian strategic elites, who look towards the Quad in order to contain Chinese belligerence, that if you study the US track record between 1945 and now, the US has not been very, very faithful to its allies, except those who come from the Anglo-Saxon stable. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization also has a cultural underpinning to it, or an ethnic underpinning to it, how much ever the Europeans and the Americans may want to deny that. So except that, if you look around the world, they have acted only in their own national interest. And it would serve India's interests if our strategic elites, especially those who are in the decision-making echelons of government, drink very deeply from these wells of knowledge.
That's a lot, saying a lot without saying it. My last question, because I want to talk to you about the Parliament session. What are the issues that the Congress is planning to raise in Parliament?
Well, it's a very critical Parliament session because the last round of assembly elections has demonstrated that the BJP can be contained. It's maybe the Congress did not do well, but the other opposition parties, definitely ended up demonstrating that. And with the kind of colossal mismanagement of COVID-19 which has taken place, the vaccination fiasco, China again transgressing into India, the unprecedented economic distress, the runaway inflation, the menu is absolutely full to the brim. Now it would depend on the savvy of the opposition. Are they able to coordinate floor strategy? That is going to be the key.
That's my question to you. Is the Congress able to coordinate the others? So far, Congress seems to be left out of the opposition bloc.
Well, the Congress is not left out of the opposition bloc. We still remain the principal opposition party, both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. But yes, I agree with you. That is the key, the outreach to get the coordination in place, because the angst of the people is on display. The issues are all there in the public space. Even now the institutions have started standing up. As we speak, the Supreme Court has questioned the entire veracity of the sedition law, which, as you are aware, has been abused and misused. And Father Stan Swami's death represents possibly the most reprehensible episode of that misuse. So there is enough material. And now, if let us suppose those who care for the country, who care for the idea of India, were they to close ranks, were they to hammer out a cohesive strategy, I think the government has a lot to answer for.
Thank you, Manish Tiwari. On that note, we've got you in your constituency, so I'll let you get back to work. But thank you and see you soon.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.